Viking Age, often romanticized in popular culture, was a period defined by both adventure and violence. From the late 8th century to the early 11th century, Norse warriors known as Vikings embarked on daring voyages across the seas. They sailed from their homelands in Scandinavia to distant shores, forging an indelible mark on history. But who were these individuals behind the fierce reputation? What motivated them to leave their families and homes to traverse the unpredictable waters? These were not merely warriors, they were farmers, traders, and skilled craftsmen. The Viking Age gave rise to a complex society that thrived on exploration, trade, and cultural exchange. The sagas and tales that emerged from this era reflect not only the ferocity of battle, but also a rich tapestry of mythology, artistry, and community life. The Vikings' innovative shipbuilding techniques enabled them to navigate rivers and oceans alike, establishing connections with distant cultures from the British Isles to the Mediterranean, and even the shores of North America. In this documentary, we will examine significant figures who played pivotal roles during this era, such as Ragnar Lothbrok, an iconic hero whose exploits have become legend. The tale of his conquests and the intricate politics of Viking society reveal the motivations driving these explorers. What fueled their ambitions, and what were the consequences of their pursuits? The answers lie in understanding the broader socio-political landscape of the time, including the impact of Christianity and the establishment of trade routes that connected Europe and beyond. Conflict was an inevitable part of the Viking narrative. Their raids were marked by both triumphs and tragedies, with each incursion leaving a lasting impact on the cultures they encountered. Not every Viking was a warrior, many were traders who sought wealth and opportunity, establishing settlements that blended Norse customs with local traditions. This cultural exchange laid the groundwork for a legacy that transcended mere conquest. Throughout this documentary, viewers will encounter the struggles faced by these individuals and the choices that shaped their destinies. The personal and societal challenges they encountered resonate through history, providing a lens through which we can examine contemporary issues of identity, migration, and conflict. As we venture into the world of the Vikings, it is essential to recognize their humanity. They experienced love, loss, joy, and despair just as we do today. By delving into their lives, we will uncover the intricacies of Viking society, including their beliefs, customs, and the values that guided their actions. Prepare for an engaging narrative that brings the Viking Age to life. As we unravel the complexities of their existence, we will see how their legacy continues to shape our understanding of history. What lessons can we learn from this remarkable period? The echoes of their adventures still resonate today, influencing everything from literature and popular culture to our perception of exploration and conquest. Early life and background. The Viking Age did not emerge in a vacuum, it was shaped by the historical and cultural contexts of the Scandinavian region. To understand the Vikings, one must first examine their roots. Scandinavian society during the early Middle Ages was primarily agrarian, consisting of small farming communities that relied heavily on the land for survival. Norsemen lived in a world where harsh winters and fertile summers dictated their way of life. Family and kinship were central to their identity, with clans often engaging in trade and mutual defense. The mythology and belief systems of the Norse people played a significant role in shaping their worldview. Norse mythology was rich with tales of gods, heroes, and monsters, creating a cultural narrative that emphasized bravery, honor, and the importance of fate. Stories of gods such as Odin, the All-Father, and Thor, the god of thunder, inspired both fear and reverence. These myths provided a framework for understanding the world, influencing the values instilled in young Norse children. Children were taught the importance of valor, loyalty, and the pursuit of glory from an early age, laying the groundwork for the Viking ethos. Many prominent Vikings hailed from notable families, which often determined their status and opportunities. For instance, individuals born into chieftain families enjoyed privileges that opened doors to leadership roles in both local and regional affairs. These early life experiences shaped their ambitions and aspirations, fostering a desire to achieve greatness. The interplay between family lineage and societal expectations created a dynamic environment where personal ambition and communal responsibilities were closely intertwined. As children grew, they participated in various activities that prepared them for adulthood. Boys learned the skills of farming, hunting, and fishing, while girls were taught household management and weaving. However, it was not uncommon for young men to receive training in combat, as warfare was an integral aspect of Viking society. The first experiences of conflict often came during raids or skirmishes with neighboring tribes, instilling in them a sense of adventure and a desire to prove their mettle. During the Viking Age, the influence of external factors, such as trade routes and neighboring cultures, became increasingly significant. The arrival of Christianity marked a pivotal shift in societal norms and beliefs. Conversion to Christianity introduced new values and customs that began to permeate Norse culture. For many Vikings, this presented a conflict between traditional beliefs and the new faith. Some embraced Christianity, while others resisted, leading to a cultural struggle that would define the era. The geographic landscape of Scandinavia also shaped the Vikings' way of life. The fjords and coastlines provided natural harbors, facilitating trade and exploration. Communities were often situated near water, which allowed for easy access to resources and opportunities for maritime ventures. This geographical advantage fostered a culture of seafaring and adventure, further fueling the Viking spirit of exploration. In their formative years, many Vikings faced challenges that would test their resilience. Harsh winters could lead to food shortages, and conflicts with neighboring tribes often threatened their livelihoods. These adversities shaped their character, instilling a sense of determination and resourcefulness. Young Norsemen learned to adapt and innovate, qualities that would later serve them well in their voyages across the seas. As they transitioned into adulthood, the aspirations of young Vikings were often influenced by the prevailing narratives within their communities. Tales of legendary figures and heroic deeds inspired many to seek glory on the battlefield or through trade. The desire for adventure, wealth, and fame pushed individuals to venture beyond their familiar territories, setting the stage for the Viking Age's remarkable exploits. Understanding the early life and background of the Vikings provides critical insights into their motivations and the cultural dynamics that drove them. Their upbringing, influenced by mythology, familial expectations, and societal norms, played a vital role in shaping the fierce warriors and skilled traders who would come to define this extraordinary era. Rise to prominence. The ascent of the Vikings from local tribes to a formidable force in Europe was not a random occurrence, it was the result of a combination of factors that aligned during the late 8th century. The era marked the beginning of the Viking Age, a time when Scandinavian warriors and traders began to make their mark beyond the confines of their homeland. This section explores the key events and developments that contributed to their rise to prominence, highlighting the ambitions, innovations, and conflicts that characterized this transformative period. The Viking raids began as small-scale operations but quickly escalated into large expeditions that struck fear into the hearts of their enemies. The first recorded raid occurred in 793 at Lindisfarne, a monastery on the northeast coast of England. This event shocked the Christian world and marked the Vikings as a significant threat. The attack not only yielded substantial wealth in the form of silver and gold but also showcased the effectiveness of Viking naval capabilities. The swift longships, designed for both speed and agility, allowed them to navigate rivers and seas, launching surprise assaults on unsuspecting targets. As the raids intensified, so did the ambitions of Viking leaders. Figures such as Ragnar Lothbrok and his sons, Ivar the Boneless and Bjorn Ironside, became legendary for their daring exploits. These leaders cultivated a reputation that inspired loyalty and courage among their followers. Their tales of valor resonated throughout the Scandinavian region, encouraging many young men to join their ranks. This influx of willing warriors not only bolstered Viking forces but also contributed to the establishment of a culture that revered bravery and conquest. The Vikings' success in raiding was not solely due to their martial prowess. Strategic planning and intelligence played crucial roles as well. Leaders would gather information on potential targets, assessing their defenses and vulnerabilities. This calculated approach enabled them to strike at opportune moments, often catching their adversaries off guard. The reputation for ruthless efficiency quickly spread, leading to a cycle where fear prompted tribute payments from some regions in an effort to avoid conflict. Trade became an essential avenue for the Vikings to expand their influence and wealth. Alongside their reputation as fierce raiders, they established extensive trading networks that connected Scandinavia to Europe, the Middle East, and even Asia. Towns such as Birka in Sweden and Hedeby in Denmark emerged as bustling hubs of commerce. Goods like furs, amber, and slaves flowed in and out of these centers, enriching Viking society and allowing them to establish political alliances through trade. The establishment of settlements in newly conquered territories played a significant role in solidifying Viking prominence. As raiding gave way to more permanent occupations, Norsemen began to integrate into the local cultures they encountered. This process of settlement led to the establishment of Danelaw in England, a region where Danish laws and customs prevailed. The Vikings adapted to the land, blending their traditions with those of the indigenous populations. This cultural exchange further solidified their influence, transforming them from mere raiders into significant players in regional politics. The rise of powerful chieftains and kings marked a turning point in Viking society. As leaders consolidated power, they began to form larger political units, uniting smaller tribes under a single banner. Figures such as Harald Fairhair emerged as central figures in this transformation. His ambition to unify Norway not only strengthened his position but also elevated the status of the Viking people as a whole. This new political landscape facilitated coordinated efforts in raids and expansions, leading to greater territorial gains. The introduction of Christianity brought both challenges and opportunities for the Vikings during their rise. As they settled in Christian territories, the pressure to convert became increasingly prominent. Some leaders embraced the new faith, seeing it as a means to gain legitimacy and strengthen ties with Christian rulers. This conversion process often resulted in complex interactions between the pagan beliefs of the Norse and the tenets of Christianity, leading to a unique cultural synthesis that would influence future generations. Moreover, the Vikings' ability to adapt their strategies in response to changing circumstances proved pivotal. As they encountered stronger resistance from established kingdoms, they began to focus on diplomacy and alliances rather than outright warfare. Marriages between Viking chieftains and local nobility helped forge connections that facilitated trade and peace, allowing them to thrive without constant conflict. Throughout this period, the Vikings also engaged in significant naval innovations. Their longships, with their shallow drafts and sturdy construction, allowed for both open sea navigation and travel along rivers. This versatility enabled them to penetrate inland areas, expanding their reach far beyond coastal regions. The maritime skills developed during this era set the stage for later explorations and conquests that would shape the course of European history. The combination of raiding, trading, and strategic alliances propelled the Vikings into a position of prominence across Europe. Their influence extended from the British Isles to the Byzantine Empire, leaving an indelible mark on history. As they carved out territories and established settlements, the legacy of the Vikings began to take shape, intertwining with the cultures they encountered. The rise to prominence of the Vikings was a multifaceted process driven by ambition, innovation, and adaptability. Their journey from local tribes to powerful players in the European landscape showcases a remarkable transformation fueled by both violence and diplomacy. The impact of their exploits would resonate through the ages, setting the stage for a new chapter in history. Major events and conflicts. The Viking Age, spanning roughly from the late 8th century to the early 11th century, is characterized by a series of transformative events and conflicts that had far-reaching consequences across Europe and beyond. This period saw the rise of the Vikings as formidable seafarers and warriors, engaging in raids, settlement, and trade that would alter the cultural and political landscapes of the regions they encountered. Understanding these events provides insight into the complexities of Viking society and their lasting legacy. The commencement of the Viking Age is often traced back to the notorious raid on Lindisfarne in 793. Located on an isolated island off the northeastern coast of England, Lindisfarne was home to a prominent Christian monastery. The attack was brutal, with Vikings pillaging sacred relics, looting treasures, and slaughtering monks. This event shocked the Christian world, as it not only demonstrated the Vikings' military prowess but also their disdain for ecclesiastical authority. The raid on Lindisfarne served as a catalyst for subsequent Viking incursions into England and marked the beginning of a century of fear and turmoil. Following the raid on Lindisfarne, a series of attacks unfolded across the British Isles. In the years that followed, Vikings struck again, targeting monasteries and settlements along the English coastline. In 794, the Irish monastery of Kells faced a similar fate, and the wealthy monastery at Iona was plundered in 795. The relentless raids caused widespread devastation, leading to the construction of defensive fortifications in coastal towns. The Viking raiders were not merely interested in pillaging, they sought to establish control over strategic locations that could serve as bases for future expeditions. The capture of York in 866 marked a turning point in the Viking campaign in England. The city, known as Jorvik to the Norse, became a vital center of Viking power. The establishment of the Danelaw, a region under Danish control, facilitated a more permanent Viking presence in England. This area was marked by a blending of Norse and Anglo-Saxon cultures, with Viking leaders adopting local customs while also influencing the populace. The Danelaw represented a shift from mere raiding to settlement, as Viking families began to establish homes and farms in the fertile lands of eastern England. As Viking forces consolidated their power in England, conflict with the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms escalated. King Alfred the Great of Wessex emerged as a key figure during this period. His reign, 871 to 899, was marked by several confrontations with Viking invaders. In 878, the decisive Battle of Edington took place, where Alfred's forces inflicted a significant defeat on the Vikings led by Guthrum. This battle not only halted Viking advances but also led to a treaty that established boundaries between Alfred's kingdom and Viking-held territories. The peace settlement allowed for a temporary respite, during which Alfred initiated military reforms and fortified his kingdom against future incursions. The Viking presence in Ireland further complicated the dynamics of conflict in the region. Following their successful raids, the Vikings established settlements in key cities such as Dublin, Waterford, and Limerick. These urban centers became hubs for trade and cultural exchange, drawing both Norse settlers and local Irish populations. However, the Vikings did not merely seek coexistence, they engaged in fierce battles against local Gaelic kingdoms. The conflict at Clontarf in 1014 stands as a pivotal moment in Irish history. The battle saw the forces of the Irish king Brian Boru clashing with Viking warriors led by the Norse king Sigtrygg Silkbeard. Although Brian Boru emerged victorious, he was killed in the battle, leading to a power vacuum that would have lasting effects on Ireland. The Viking incursions into the Frankish Empire also exemplified their military ambitions. The Carolingian Empire, established by Charlemagne, faced significant challenges as Viking raiders targeted its northern regions. The Siege of Paris in 845, led by the Viking chieftain Ragnar Lothbrok, highlighted the vulnerability of the Frankish monarchy. The Vikings demanded a hefty ransom for the city's safety, which the Carolingian king Charles the Bald eventually paid. This incident marked a turning point in Viking tactics. Rather than solely relying on raids, they began to employ diplomacy and ransom as effective strategies. The raids intensified during the late 9th century, with notable assaults on the city of Paris again in 885 to 886. A massive Viking fleet, reportedly numbering over 700 ships, besieged the city for nearly a year. The residents, along with a contingent of Frankish knights, mounted a desperate defense. While the Vikings ultimately retreated, the siege demonstrated their capacity for sustained military pressure and highlighted the weaknesses of the Carolingian Empire. In response, the Franks fortified their defenses, signaling a shift in the nature of conflict from reactive to proactive strategies. As the Viking Age progressed, their expeditions extended beyond raiding into a broader sphere of influence, particularly in the east. The Varangians, as the Vikings were known in Eastern Europe, engaged in extensive trade along the rivers of Russia, facilitating connections between the Baltic and the Byzantine Empire. The Dnieper and Volga rivers became vital trade routes, allowing the Vikings to interact with Slavic tribes and establish trade agreements. However, these interactions were not solely commercial. The Vikings also engaged in military campaigns against local rulers. The Varangian Guard, an elite unit of mercenaries serving the Byzantine emperors, emerged during this period. Many Norse warriors sought employment in the Byzantine court, drawn by the allure of wealth and adventure. Their presence significantly impacted Byzantine military practices and contributed to the cultural exchange between the Norse and the Byzantines. Viking influence extended to Byzantine art, religion, and military organization, creating a fascinating interplay of cultures. The colonization of the North Atlantic represented another significant chapter in Viking expansion. The establishment of settlements in Iceland and Greenland reflected the Vikings' adaptability and desire for new resources. Norse explorers, such as Eric the Red, ventured to Greenland, while his son, Leif Erikson, is credited with reaching North America, specifically the area known as Vinland, around the year 1000. This foray into North America marked the Vikings' furthest westward expansion and demonstrated their navigational skills and ambition. However, these settlements faced challenges from harsh climates and conflicts with indigenous populations, limiting their long-term success. The conversion of Viking leaders to Christianity marked a profound transformation in their society. Initially, the Viking raids were motivated by wealth and resources, but the gradual adoption of Christianity led to a shift in priorities. Notably, King Harald Bluetooth of Denmark played a crucial role in the Christianization of the region. His conversion to Christianity in the late 10th century symbolized a significant turning point, as it facilitated alliances with Christian rulers and allowed for greater integration into European political structures. The introduction of Christianity had far-reaching effects on Viking culture. Traditional Norse beliefs and practices began to decline, replaced by Christian values and institutions. This cultural shift affected various aspects of Viking life, including laws, governance, and societal norms. As the Vikings embraced Christianity, they became increasingly involved in the broader European political landscape, participating in alliances and conflicts that would further diminish their identity as raiders. The end of the Viking Age is often attributed to a combination of factors, including internal divisions, external pressures, and the rise of centralized monarchies in Europe. The Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066 stands as a symbolic conclusion to this era. King Harold Godwinson's forces faced off against the Viking king Harald Hardrada in a fierce battle that resulted in a decisive English victory. This battle, occurring shortly before the Norman conquest of England, marked the end of significant Viking incursions into the British Isles. Despite the decline of Viking raids, the legacy of their major events and conflicts continued to shape Europe. The blending of Norse and local cultures left an indelible mark on the regions they influenced. The impact of Viking expansion can be seen in place names, language, and cultural practices throughout Europe. The stories of their exploits were immortalized in sagas and chronicles, serving as a testament to their adventurous spirit and military prowess. The major events and conflicts of the Viking Age reveal a complex tapestry of ambition, violence, and adaptation. The relentless pursuit of wealth and territory by the Vikings led to significant interactions with various cultures, shaping the course of European history. Their impact reverberates through the centuries, reminding us of a time when these Norse seafarers played a pivotal role on the world stage, leaving behind a legacy that continues to fascinate and inspire. Climax. The climax of the Viking Age encapsulates a series of defining moments that brought the Norse peoples to the height of their influence and power while simultaneously setting the stage for their decline. This period is marked by intense battles, critical shifts in alliances, and the transformation of Viking identity from raiders to settlers and statesmen. The culmination of these events not only determined the fate of the Vikings but also reshaped the political landscape of Europe. One of the most significant turning points occurred with the rise of King Sweyn Forkbeard of Denmark. His ambition to conquer England represented the culmination of Viking efforts to expand their territories. Sweyn's successful invasion in the early 11th century showcased the military prowess of the Danes and the effectiveness of their longships, which allowed them to navigate both seas and rivers. This campaign not only exemplified the Vikings' military might but also marked a shift towards more organized and ambitious conquests. The subsequent establishment of Sweyn's rule in England signified a moment of triumph, consolidating Viking power in one of their most coveted territories. The battle for England intensified under Sweyn's son, Cnut the Great. Following Sweyn's death in 1014, Cnut faced challenges from rival claimants to the English throne, including King Edmund Ironside, Sweyn's other son. The struggle for power reached its peak during the intense confrontations between Cnut and Edmund. The Battle of Asandin in 1016 proved to be a decisive encounter, where Cnut's forces defeated Edmund. This victory not only solidified Cnut's claim to the English throne but also represented the apogee of Viking aspirations in England, marking the consolidation of Danish and Anglo-Saxon rule under his reign. Cnut's reign exemplified a transformation in Viking identity. Rather than continuing as mere raiders, Cnut sought to establish himself as a legitimate ruler. His marriage to Emma of Normandy strengthened alliances with continental powers, facilitating trade and cultural exchange. Under his rule, England saw a period of relative stability, allowing for the integration of Norse and Anglo-Saxon customs. Cnut's governance highlighted the adaptability of the Vikings, transitioning from aggressive conquerors to influential leaders, yet it also foreshadowed the decline of their traditional raiding culture. Another climactic event was the conversion of key Viking leaders to Christianity. This shift not only transformed personal beliefs but also altered the political dynamics of the regions they governed. The Christianization of Scandinavia in the 10th and 11th centuries marked a significant turning point. Leaders like Olaf Tryggvason of Norway embraced Christianity with fervor, seeking to unify their kingdoms under a single faith. This transition was often met with resistance from traditionalists, leading to conflicts that would test the resolve of newly Christianized rulers. The consequences of this religious shift were far-reaching. As Viking leaders converted, they formed alliances with Christian monarchs across Europe, fostering a new sense of unity among Christian nations. The conversion process often involved violent confrontations with pagan holdouts, culminating in battles that reflected the tension between old beliefs and the new faith. The Battle of Stiklestad in 1030, where King Olaf II of Norway faced a coalition of pagan and rival forces, exemplifies the struggle. Although Olaf was defeated, his martyrdom galvanized the spread of Christianity in Norway and solidified his legacy as a saint. The climax of the Viking Age was not limited to battles and conquests, it also involved significant cultural exchanges. The establishment of trade networks and settlements across Europe led to an influx of goods, ideas, and customs. The Viking presence in places like Constantinople and the Abbasid Caliphate facilitated trade that extended beyond mere plunder. Items such as silver, spices, and silk became commonplace in Viking settlements, enriching their culture and prompting shifts in societal norms. The interactions between the Vikings and the indigenous peoples of the North Atlantic are also crucial to this climax. The settlement of Iceland, Greenland, and the brief foray into North America illustrated the Vikings' navigational skills and adventurous spirit. Figures like Eric the Red and Leif Erikson epitomized this exploratory phase, pushing the boundaries of the known world. However, these ventures were not without conflict. Encounters with indigenous populations in North America, particularly the Native Americans, led to skirmishes that highlighted the challenges of sustaining settlements in hostile environments. The Viking Age climaxed with the culmination of military, political, and cultural developments, but it also marked the beginning of decline. The Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066 serves as a critical inflection point. King Harold Hardrada's invasion of England, intended to claim the throne, faced the forces of King Harold Godwin's son. This confrontation not only illustrated the continuing Viking ambitions but also demonstrated the changing tides of warfare. The defeat of Hardrada and the subsequent Norman conquest reshaped England and effectively ended the era of significant Viking raids. Following the defeat at Stamford Bridge, the once feared Viking warriors faced new realities. The political landscape of Europe was evolving, with centralized monarchies rising in power. The cultural integration of Vikings into European society diminished their distinct identity as a warrior people. As Christianity took hold, the motivations for raiding and pillaging waned, leading to a gradual decline in Viking culture as it had been known. The climax of the Viking Age represents a convergence of military triumphs, cultural exchanges, and transformative political developments. It encapsulates the essence of Viking ambition, adaptability, and eventual integration into European society. The events of this period not only determined the fate of the Vikings but also set the stage for the emergence of new powers and the transformation of the European landscape. This climax serves as a reminder of a time when the Norse peoples reshaped history through their audacity and resilience. Resolution and decline. The resolution and decline of the Viking Age represent a profound transformation for the Norse peoples, marked by significant changes in their societal structure, culture, and political landscape. This period is characterized by the diminishing power of Viking raiders and the gradual integration of their identities into emerging European nations. The factors leading to this decline are complex, encompassing military defeats, cultural assimilation, and shifts in economic practices. The aftermath of the climactic events, particularly the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066, had far-reaching consequences. The defeat of King Harold Hardrada signaled the end of significant Viking military ambitions in England. The political landscape was shifting rapidly, with powerful centralized monarchies emerging in England, Norway, and Denmark. These monarchies established stronger governance structures and military capabilities, rendering the traditional Viking raiding strategy increasingly ineffective. The once feared Viking warriors found themselves at a disadvantage against organized armies and fortified cities. In Scandinavia, the consolidation of power among local chieftains and kings further marginalized the influence of Viking raiders. The unification of Norway under King Harald Fairhair in the late 9th century and the establishment of the Kingdom of Denmark under King Sweyn Forkbeard represented a significant shift from fragmented tribal societies to more centralized governance. As kingdoms grew stronger, they began to enforce laws and promote stability, reducing the opportunities for raiding and pillaging that had defined the Viking lifestyle. The Christianization of Scandinavia played a crucial role in the resolution and decline of the Viking Age. As Viking leaders converted to Christianity, there was a notable shift in cultural and religious practices. The influence of the Church facilitated the establishment of new societal norms that prioritized trade and diplomacy over warfare. The spread of Christianity also introduced concepts of morality and law that contrasted with the traditional Viking ethos of honor and valor through combat. This transformation led to a gradual erosion of the warrior culture that had previously defined Norse society. Economic changes also contributed to the decline of Viking raiding. The establishment of trade routes and markets created new opportunities for wealth generation that did not rely on violence. The Vikings began to engage in commerce with neighboring cultures, exchanging goods such as furs, timber, and iron for silver and luxury items. This shift towards trade signaled a transition from a reliance on raiding to a more stable economic framework, further diminishing the need for traditional Viking warfare. In addition to economic and cultural shifts, internal strife within Viking communities played a role in their decline. As societies became more complex, power struggles emerged among local leaders, leading to infighting and division. The lack of unity made it difficult for Viking factions to mount coordinated military campaigns. This fragmentation weakened their overall strength and ability to compete with emerging European powers. The impact of external pressures also cannot be overlooked. The rise of powerful kingdoms in Europe, coupled with the growing strength of the Christian Church, created an environment hostile to Viking interests. The expansion of the Holy Roman Empire and the Norman conquest of England represented direct challenges to Viking ambitions. As European nations consolidated power, the Viking territories found themselves increasingly isolated and outmaneuvered in political and military affairs. Culturally, the integration of Vikings into European society led to a loss of distinct Viking identity. The blending of Norse customs with Christian practices resulted in significant changes in social structures, beliefs, and traditions. As Viking settlers adopted the languages and customs of their new homelands, their unique cultural identity began to dissipate. This process of assimilation marked the end of the traditional Viking way of life and the emergence of a new, hybrid culture that reflected the influences of both Norse and European societies. By the late 11th century, the Viking Age had effectively come to a close. The last vestiges of Viking military power had faded, with notable incidents of resistance occurring but lacking the momentum to revive the Viking lifestyle. The consolidation of European kingdoms and the establishment of stable governance left little room for the raiding culture that had once thrived. The transition from a warrior society to one focused on trade, agriculture, and statecraft symbolized the end of an era. The resolution and decline of the Viking Age were characterized by a complex interplay of military defeats, cultural assimilation, economic transformation, and internal divisions. The once mighty Viking warriors were gradually absorbed into the emerging European societies, leading to the loss of their distinct identity and way of life. This period marks not just the end of Viking raids but also a significant transformation in the history of Northern Europe, shaping the cultural and political landscape for centuries to come. Legacy and impact. The legacy of the Viking Age is rich and multifaceted, extending beyond mere historical events to encompass cultural, linguistic, and societal influences that are still felt today. As one of the most significant periods in Northern European history, the Viking Age left an indelible mark on the regions it touched, shaping the course of development in Scandinavia, the British Isles, and even parts of North America. The cultural influence of the Vikings is evident in the arts, literature, and folklore of the regions they inhabited or interacted with. Norse mythology, with its pantheon of gods and epic tales, continues to capture the imagination of people worldwide. Characters like Odin, Thor, and Loki have transcended their mythological origins to become symbols of strength, bravery, and cunning in contemporary storytelling. The resurgence of interest in Viking mythology has inspired modern literature, movies, and television series, often blending historical facts with fantastical elements to create compelling narratives. The Viking Age also had a profound impact on language. The Old Norse language, spoken by the Vikings, contributed to the development of several modern languages, particularly the Scandinavian languages such as Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian. English, too, bears the marks of Viking influence, especially in its vocabulary and place names. Many words in English can be traced back to Old Norse, reflecting the interactions between the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxon inhabitants of Britain. This linguistic exchange enriched the English language and highlighted the interconnectedness of cultures during that period. In terms of societal organization, the Viking Age introduced innovative governance and trading practices. The concept of democratic assemblies, known as things, played a crucial role in Viking societies, allowing free men to participate in decision-making processes. This early form of governance laid the groundwork for later democratic practices in Scandinavia and influenced political systems in other parts of Europe. The Vikings' emphasis on trade and commerce also contributed to the rise of urban centers and marketplaces, shaping the economic landscape of Northern Europe. The Vikings were skilled seafarers and explorers, which had lasting implications for navigation and maritime trade. Their advanced shipbuilding techniques and navigational skills enabled them to traverse vast distances, reaching as far as North America, the Mediterranean, and even the Middle East. This legacy of exploration not only expanded their own horizons but also paved the way for future maritime endeavors. The Viking longship, known for its speed and agility, influenced naval architecture and remains a symbol of Viking ingenuity. In terms of historical narrative, the Viking Age has often been romanticized and mythologized in popular culture. While there are numerous accounts of their brutal raids, the Viking story is also one of settlement, integration, and cultural exchange. This duality has led to a more nuanced understanding of the Vikings as not merely raiders but also as traders, settlers, and cultural transmitters. Modern scholarship continues to reassess the Viking legacy, emphasizing their contributions to the development of European civilization rather than solely focusing on their violent exploits. The impact of the Vikings can also be seen in the lasting influence they had on the regions they settled. Areas such as England, Ireland, and parts of France experienced significant cultural and genetic mixing due to Viking invasions and settlements. The establishment of the Danelaw in England, for example, resulted in a unique blend of Anglo-Saxon and Norse customs that shaped the identity of the region. Similarly, in Ireland, Viking influence is evident in place names and archaeological sites that reflect the integration of Norse settlers into Irish society. The Viking legacy is not confined to Europe, it extends to North America, where the Norse established temporary settlements, such as L'Anse-aux Meadows in Newfoundland. These early encounters with indigenous peoples exemplify the complex interactions between different cultures and have significant implications for understanding pre-Columbian history. The Norse presence in North America, although short-lived, challenges conventional narratives about exploration and settlement in the New World. Furthermore, the fascination with the Viking Age has spurred a revival of interest in Norse culture, leading to the establishment of reenactment groups, museums, and educational programs dedicated to Viking history. This resurgence reflects a broader cultural movement that seeks to connect with heritage and understand the complexities of history. Events celebrating Viking culture, such as festivals and historical reenactments, draw participants and audiences eager to learn about this captivating period. In contemporary society, the Viking legacy also manifests in national identity and pride among Scandinavian countries. The Viking Age is often celebrated as a time of cultural strength and resilience, and many modern Norse-inspired initiatives seek to preserve this heritage. National holidays, folklore festivals, and educational curricula in Scandinavia often highlight Viking history, fostering a sense of connection to the past. The legacy and impact of the Viking Age are evident across various facets of modern life, from language and literature to societal structures and cultural practices. The Vikings' complex identity as raiders, traders, explorers, and settlers continues to resonate, shaping perceptions of Northern European history. Understanding this legacy allows for a deeper appreciation of the interconnectedness of cultures and the enduring influence of the Viking Age on contemporary society. The Viking Age, spanning from the late 8th century to the early 11th century, stands as a pivotal period in European history, marked by significant developments in culture, trade, and exploration. This era, often characterized by violent raids and fierce warriors, encompasses a broader narrative of resilience, adaptation, and cultural exchange. As we reflect on the multifaceted legacy of the Vikings, it becomes evident that their influence extends far beyond the immediate impact of their conquests. The initial encounters between the Vikings and various European societies led to lasting changes in trade routes and economic practices. The establishment of trade networks across the continent and beyond created opportunities for cultural interactions that enriched the societies involved. The Norsemen's exceptional seafaring skills allowed them to connect disparate regions, resulting in an exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies that shaped the medieval world. Moreover, the Vikings' contributions to language and literature have left an enduring imprint on many modern languages, particularly those of Northern Europe. Their stories, rooted in mythology and history, continue to inspire contemporary storytelling, reminding us of the power of narrative in shaping cultural identity. From epic sagas to popular media portrayals, the fascination with Norse mythology highlights the relevance of their tales in today's society. The governance structures established during the Viking Age also paved the way for modern democratic principles. The concept of collective decision-making and representation, as seen in the Viking Thing, demonstrates an early form of civic engagement that resonates with contemporary political systems. Understanding these roots provides valuable insights into the evolution of governance and the importance of community participation. The Viking legacy is not solely confined to historical events, it encompasses a cultural revival that emphasizes a connection to heritage. In modern Scandinavia, there is a renewed interest in Viking history and traditions, fostering a sense of pride in cultural identity. Festivals, educational initiatives, and reenactments celebrate this vibrant past, ensuring that the stories of the Vikings remain alive for future generations. While the Vikings are often remembered for their raids, it is essential to acknowledge their role as settlers and traders. Their integration into local cultures led to the blending of customs and practices that enriched the social fabric of the regions they inhabited. This dynamic interaction illustrates the complexity of their identity and the ways in which cultures can coexist and influence one another. In considering the Viking Age, one must also reflect on the broader implications of their expansion and interactions with indigenous populations. The Norse encounters with various societies, including those in North America, challenged traditional narratives of exploration and settlement. Acknowledging these interactions allows for a more nuanced understanding of history, one that recognizes the interconnectedness of diverse cultures. The enduring fascination with the Viking Age highlights the importance of historical memory and the ways in which past events shape contemporary identity. As we engage with this history, it is crucial to approach it with an open mind, recognizing both the achievements and the complexities of this remarkable period. The Viking Age serves as a testament to human ambition, adaptability, and resilience. The legacies left behind by the Vikings resonate through language, culture, and societal structures, reminding us of the interconnectedness of human experiences across time and space. By examining this period, we not only honor the achievements of the Vikings but also gain insights into the dynamics of cultural exchange, identity, and history itself. As we continue to study and reflect on this era, we carry forward the stories and lessons that emerge from the Viking Age, enriching our understanding of the past and its impact on the present.